All right, to start our brief, we're going to tell a story. Reed Barrett was a 26-year-old. He was a civilian. This was 3 years ago. He had a very successful marketing career. He was very ambitious. He found a lot of happiness in what he did. He had opportunities for lateral as well as vertical promotability. But he always wanted to do something else. He wanted to be a fighter pilot. So he reaches out, at a time being, to an Instagram account by the name of the Globemaster. Now, the Globemaster is a C-17 reservist by the name of John Millman. John Millman basically elicits a follower group of 31,000 people, and he interacts and he posts essentially aviation-minded pictures and posts. And he interacts with kind of the community and helps people kind of get on their feet if they want to make flying a career. So looking at this, when Reed Barrett reaches out to John Millman, he directs Reed, and he says, this is how you apply. You need to apply to these guard, you need to apply to these reserve units. And eventually Reed Barrett gets picked up by the 121st Fighter Squadron. So Reed Barrett gets picked up, and now he's a student at Vance Air Force Base. I'm an instructor at Vance Air Force Base, and Reed Barrett was one of my students. So once I talked to Reed and found out this is his story, I realized how essentially the field of recruiting is changing and who people are actually reaching out to. They're going to different sources than they used to go to in the past. So specifically the Globemaster. Why the Globemaster? Is because he has flashy pictures. What is the value of it? It's user-generated content. So the fact of the matter is what John posts is it's an advocacy for a product he likes. User-generated content is defined as any content that's posted by a non-paid contributor. This could be pictures, this could be essentially videos, this could be tweets. They're testimonials essentially. And so based on the world of traditional marketing, 84% of millennials and people today don't like traditional marketing. We've seen traditional advertising and we've been inundated for like the last decade. So now that you have so much exposure to your phones, people are turning to user-generated content to learn information, to figure out where they want to spend their money, where they want to make their consumer decisions, what career choices they want to make. So we look at this user-generated content and we see that that's essentially why people reached out to John Millman. So getting beyond that, essentially we already defined what it is, but why do people ultimately like it? So right now we're seeing, obviously, with movement away from traditional advertising, we're seeing that 92% trust word of mouth more than any kind of advertising. If you look at a testimonial online, people are more willing to trust that. Another stat that's not mentioned, 79% of people basically value a written testimonial online as much as word of mouth. That's huge. That's essentially differences that we never used to see and we couldn't quantify that in the past. Moving past that influence, 85% of people find visual user-generated content more influential than brand posts. Like we said, we've kind of elaborated on the fact that people want to see, like they don't want to be led anymore. I don't want to be told what I need to buy. I'm going to make my decisions basically because I'm going to choose to identify with this person. This person enjoys this product, therefore I want to make that outreach. This is another thing that we're seeing. 30% of all media time is spent on user-generated content. The world population right now, 27% of the world is made up of millennials. Of these 27%, 25% of millennials spend more than 5 hours a day on their phone. We look at it as time wasted for people who kind of have that disconnect, but it's not. It's spent on user-generated content. They're spending time on these platforms, learning decisions, collecting data, collecting information that can guide them forward with the decisions they're making. Authenticity. This is perhaps the most overlooked quality of these accounts. The fact of the matter, these people aren't posting flashy pictures. They're essentially posting an authentic, genuine story. They are trying to convey, they don't have anything to sell. They're not paid, they just enjoy their testimony and they want you to have that experience. So people can identify, as long as there's authenticity and there's genuine content, people are gonna trust who they're reaching out to. Industries where we're seeing this. So this isn't a new idea. Lots of companies are investing this in marketing. Starbucks with the white cup contest. This is as simple as taking a white cup, basically designing it, and then posting out a picture. Red Bull and GoPro owns the medium for which they can create their user-generated content. One of the cooler examples is General Electric. So GE in 2016, they partnered with a filmmaker by the name of Sam Crossman. Sam Crossman basically, one sec. Okay, so Sam Crossman teamed up with a team of scientists who went down to Nicaragua. This was the mouth of hell. They created video content from their own scientific research that they could bring online. What this did, they posted it on Facebook, YouTube, and Snapchat. The best part, nothing was scripted. This was all authentic stuff that they were doing. The following year, you saw recruitment for engineers and scientists go up 800%. Beyond that, so looking at kind of our Air Force advocates, kind of the research. So we already have people who are posting our own user-generated content, and it's more than just John Millman. So John Millman obviously is a C-17 pilot reaching out to aviation-minded enthusiasts, but we have other people. So SOCOM Athlete, he's interconnected with 50,000 people. 50,000 people who are special forces minded. They want to reach out. It's a recruiting tool for how you can make it in pararescue, how you can make it in some of these essentially communities. And this is who his outreach is that he actually engages with back and forth. The next person we identified was Justin Fighter Pilot. So Justin Fighter Pilot, he has 11,000 people with his initial outreach. But what's really cool about him is he has a podcast. His podcast, each podcast reaches 2,500 people. So on this podcast, he's talking to people about how they can ultimately become a pilot in the Air Force. And that's actually his passion as a brand advocate. The next person we see is a police officer. So his work is particularly with K-9 teams and firearms. And then the next one we'll see is Brittany Way. So this is an Air Force doctor who is tied into the medical field. So one of the things we're seeing beyond this, a study from McCarthy basically in 1986 came up with 4 things are required for community. You need membership, you need influence, you need fulfillment of needs, and you need emotional connection. So the user-generated content you're seeing right now ties in community. These people, you're gonna see influence. You're gonna see that these people feel that they have buy-in, they can reach out to their community, it's a two-way interaction. Ultimately, you're seeing the emotional connection because they know that no one's selling anything. All of this reach out is out of authenticity. The next thing we're gonna see, so right now, basically we're identifying, based on the current model, we're gonna talk about the dilemmas. So right now you're seeing potential recruits reaching out to these brand advocates. So the brand advocates like John Millman or Justin Fighter Pilot are seeing on average 50 messages a week. So people are reaching out and you're seeing 50 messages a week, and they're doing everything that they can to answer these questions. They're trying to get these people into the platforms, they're trying to get them into the Air Force. The fact of the matter is they all have primary AFSCs. The recruiters, obviously, they're reaching out to have other quotas that they need to meet. And the fact of the matter is you're seeing a massive disconnect when these Reed Barretts are reaching out. The fact of the matter, Reed Barrett's not 1 in a million. John, not 1 in a million. John Millman specifically has gotten 8 to 10 pilots per year that he's taken from civilian all the way into flight suit. And other guys, other brand advocates are actually doing this as well. So right now you look at this, and if you think, based on our current model, airforce.com's user-generated content, the difference is airforce.com takes you from the platform. We want you to come to us is essentially what airforce.com is saying. You're seeing a website that's convoluted, it's generic responses, you're seeing password protected, it's very Air Force-y. And the idea of other marketing tactics is to reach the user on their platform. So other people are saying, hey, we like your customer service, we value you, we want you to be a part of our community, and they're reaching them. We're saying, come to us, you're not worth our time, we want something else. Some of the other issues we're seeing more specifically, so this is an account from John Millman. So when he is reaching out to these people and they're trying to get in contact, he says, may I please grab up your phone number and pass it on? I have some basic questions for a guy who wants to be a pilot. What we want you to see here is 3 months. There's a 3-month delay, and what you get is a very generic answer. You can grab any number that is off our profile page. The fact of the matter is what this is conveying is we don't value the customer. But more importantly, we're saying whether we are or not, we're insinuating that you need to come to us, we want you to be on our time. And ultimately, we want to put this out and show genuine appreciation for the customer to build our community. The next slide, so this is a comment about someone who's trying to reach out, and what you see is a copy-pasted answer. So the fact of the matter is you're not going to have authenticity, you're not going to have people buying into your brand when the only content you're putting out is generic and it just redirects you to a website. Thanks, man. All right, so for our new model, so identifying our issue, we see potential recruits. So each of these brand advocates right now, so on Instagram specifically, we're not agnostic to social media platforms. What we're seeing on Instagram is there's a pool of 600 million people. Right now, our brand advocates, we've identified about 30. They're plugged into a little more than 100,000, and the beauty is it's growing. So when people reach out to the brand advocate with their questions and answers, these people do what they can in their free time to get them in the Air Force, but we're seeing a disconnect. You need a streamlined process. So in order to move forward, you need to identify some way to bridge this gap. And we've identified this with a digital cell. The digital cell we came up with is essentially going to, their whole purpose is to connect with these people on the strategic level. They're gonna answer the brand advocates in a very reactionary role. They're gonna answer indirect questions. If you have a question about AFSC, I'm gonna get you plugged in and I'm gonna help you get there. The biggest thing we want is interpersonal skills. We need people who are gonna be genuinely providing content and feedback in a timely manner, because this is gonna convey what we wanna be known for as the Air Force. The Air Force wants to be a community. We want people to reach out and we want you on our team. This warm handoff is basically gonna be the transition we need to engage our people. Next slide, please. Okay, so some of the costs and benefits. Ironically, this is going to reach out, obviously this could reach out to a much larger pool. Obviously if there's 600 million users and you can touch 100,000 people, it's gonna look like you're casting a very wide net. But ironically, based on the way the world's going, traditional recruiting is more kind of salesman oriented. By engaging with people on these platforms, they're actually communities. And you're reaching out saying, hey, love what you're doing on Justin Fighter Pilot's page. If you wanna make this a career, reach out to me. We'd love to help you out. And ultimately, you're reaching a much wider pool on a much more intimate level. So you're seeing both effects. Low risk, so the reason we chose 3 is because it's easily implemented. We actually have data that we can cover in the Q&A to talk about how we arrived at these statistics. But it's easy to implement in the next 3 to 6 months. Ultimately, we could see ourselves moving up to 34 people, and that's based on 30 brand advocates at 30 responses a month. Similar courses with curriculum or enrollment see about 34 operators for this level of flow. Slide. And ultimately, as far as inspire, engage, and recruit, so our brand advocates are inspiring today. They are saying they love the Air Force, they're saying these careers are awesome and it'll work for you. They're engaging people with their testimonies. People are seeing this and they're deciding all the way from, hey, initially like, I might be an 11-year-old who wants to be a pilot someday, to I'm ready to go, where do I sign? As far as engagement goes, so the way this we see it reaching out is it could be proactive or reactive, but ultimately based on the customer service and the value of the customer, this is what's gonna get people buy into community. So as long as we're providing that timely feedback, that good content, we're ultimately saying we care about the customer. And then recruiters. At this point, we don't see any change. Recruiters can continue to plug people into AFSCs the way they do and still get the numbers. We're just changing the approach the way we do it. Slide. Ultimately, we want to see more Reed Barretts. The fact of the matter is, we don't want to see these people slipping through the cracks. We want to welcome people into our team. We want to welcome into our community. We want to make their dream become a reality in the Air Force, not with another company. Thank you. And we have questions pertaining to some of the things that we didn't cover last time. So.